Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to talk about was preseason 2023 a success, because it's coming to the end of the preseason and I think it's quite important to talk about what's changed, what's being impactful, and what really hasn't hit the mark. So let's dive into it. I'm going to start with some of the more positive things. So one of the more positive things was Chemtech return. It worked. It's not bad. People aren't complaining about it, and it's pretty healthy. If anything, it might be too strong with the healing and shielding power, but we'll have to see as time goes on what people value the heal and shield power as. I think champs like Soraka, Sona obviously get buffed by this Drake significantly. Any healing and shielding based champion will receive a big bonus from it, so we'll definitely have to measure its power level through that, but for the most part it seems pretty balanced, and the Chemtech Rift also seems pretty good. The plants are a nice change, and the overall feel of it did a good job, and I'm pretty sure it hit the mark. So that's one of the good ones. Jungle changes, I'm also going to put this down as a positive. I think it hit pretty well. The pet system works well at what it does. You need to be able to farm up, get your snacks. People seem to overvalue staying in their own jungle at the moment. When you can invade still, invading isn't off the table. It's not as optimal as it used to be, and you can just farm, but you can invade, steal away camps and stuff like this. It's pretty good, and it's a good way of getting your jungle pet faster if you need to. There are lots of high elo players currently abusing strategies such as just permanently stealing away camps and starving the enemy jungler, so there is definitely strategies there, and it'll be interesting to see how it develops going into pro, going into the new season, stuff like this. Obviously we got the new camp mechanics, marked for death, where if a camp has lost the large monster, the rest of the camp will die over 10 seconds. The clear strength on your side is stronger, so you do less damage to enemy camps, and you will now heal a small amount whenever you kill any camp. So you get a mini Gromp heal, kind of. And overall, it hit pretty well. The XP and gold changes, this one didn't hit as well. Well, it did do something, but it didn't hit as hard as it needed to. But that's mainly because the power of bot lane shifted more towards jungle mid. So now jungle mid are the two strongest followers in the game. Bot support the next two, and then top is still the weakest. It's not as weak, but it's still the weakest. So this ended up hitting a lot less than it probably could have, but it was still a good change. We'll maybe see some more jungle nerfs. I wouldn't surprise me. It's definitely the strongest one in the game at the moment, but we'll have to see. So they just gave more XP to top lane. They took a bit of gold out of mid, and they that was the main thing. So turret adjustments, they gave more gold per plate. This is pretty huge. A change like this definitely helps top lane. Does help mid and bot, but top lane tends to take their turret during the 14 minutes most often. So this is definitely a buff to top lane, more siege heavy top laners. It doesn't push for split push strategy. Split push strategy isn't a particularly strong way of playing the game at the moment. Some champs are just too strong and too quick at burning you down to really have it as an optimal strategy to play. Things like Yorick and Sion aren't doing amazing at the moment either. The AFK update, this one also did pretty well. Being able to forfeit earlier than 1 minute 30, I'm pretty sure, is a pretty healthy change. Sometimes people can obviously just be away from their keyboard and come back in this time, and it can be frustrating to be in this situation, but it does stop people from being AFK, and it helps games finish faster and getting into the next one, which is a pretty good change. So definitely good. The champ select anonymity, where you can't see other people in your solo queue games, also hit pretty well. I'd consider that a good change. You can no longer see the names of your allies on your team, which obviously means you can't use op.gg and Mobalytics alongside it. So I'd say that's a pretty healthy change. Game remake updates. This is this also falls into the AFK kind of bracket here. Champion changes. Okay, so this one's a bit This one didn't hit as well. Mundo changes were not good. He is super, super strong in low elo. He is incredibly heartsteel bound, and that's not a healthy spot for him to be in. He was, or what they should have done if they wanted, I don't know what their goal with Mundo was, but what they've ended up doing is they've turned him even more into a low elo skewed champion, where the longer the game drags on, the stronger he becomes. You get more heartsteel procs. It punishes bad itemization of so if the enemy doesn't itemize anti-health, stacking item support, Divine Cinderer, Mundo is definitely a lot stronger. So this one, in my opinion, didn't land where it should have. Mundo was already low elo skewed, and all we've done is just amplified it, and that's not a healthy spot for him to be in. Kassadin, I'd say the Kassadin one seems pretty good. Kassadin, it's no longer tied to other people casting spells around his E. His E is now a self. It now has its own cooldown, and it reduces by 1 second whenever people cast spells in the area, which I'd say is a more healthy way of approaching Kassadin's E. He is definitely on the stronger side at the moment. He'll probably have to be nerfed with changes to Roa, which I think are pushing the item to become more stronger. The item is definitely on the weak side right now. Kassadin shouldn't go Roa anyway. He's more of a Crown or a Everfrost user, even a Ludens user. So Roa is a bit bait on him at the moment. We'll have to see how that lands though. Zeri, the changes seem good. Definitely seems to be in a healthy spot at the moment. Landed her almost perfectly for solo queue. She'll probably be too strong in pro, so she'll probably end up getting nerfed. But for the moment, she's in a fairly healthy spot in solo queue. So that's pretty good. Yuumi obviously being nerfed going into the new season. They're trying to dissuade people from using Zeri Yuumi in pro, but we're already seeing it in the Demacia Cup, so it wouldn't surprise me that when pro starts in January, that Zeri is picked alongside Yuumi, maybe even Pickleban. The new ping system, it's good. However, bait ping, yeah, it's a problem, and we'll have to see how that ends up getting fixed. It wasn't a great choice of icon, and I think Riot have noticed this, and they're definitely looking into fixing it. I don't use the new pings a lot. I can definitely see their benefits, but over time I'll probably end up using them more. Plus the enemy vision, it's nice being able to say to like show this area is cleared or this area needs to be cleared. I think these are pretty good good things for, but being able to ping a ward and give you 5 gold and then it mark where it is on the map is also a pretty nice change. So I'd say that landed in an alright spot. Items. This was the biggest blunder of the entire season, of the entire preseason. It just didn't hit. The items are too niche. Most of them are pretty bad, or they're bad because they could only fill very certain niches, which isn't a bad thing, but because there's only a limited amount of items in the game at the moment, it ends up being a bad thing. Radiant Virtue is a good item, but it's very niche, and that makes it bad because it is very, very niche, and you can't build it in as many situations where you would want to build it or can build it. Wait, I did not word that correctly. Yeah, Radiant Virtue is just too niche. It's a good item, but it's niche. The only users of it are really like your Bards, your Sejuanis, and your Zac, stuff like this. Roa is a bait item on literally everybody but Anivia. Anivia can use it well, I guess. Heartsteel is good on Mundo. It's not a bad item. It's just really, really hard to play it into anti-health items at the moment, which make it feel really bad. Plus, it doesn't curve amazingly into the second item either, because you're very limited to 1 resistances, unless you go Gargoyle second, which also feels bad. So it's a pretty rough item at the moment. Jackshow is probably the healthiest tank item in terms of what it can do. It feels bad to use this item though, but the very meaningless heal it has on it doesn't feel great. Resistances are not a particularly high engagement factor within an item. Ramping resistances don't feel that noticeable, whereas health and health increase feels a lot because you get to see the value of the health rather than I'm taking 2% less damage through resistance or something like this. It's a healthy tank item though, and it's probably the most viable one across multiple champions. Iceborne is also not a bad item, but it's got armor within its mythic passive, within its mythic stat line, which means you can basically only build this item into an AD top laner unless you go Fon first or Abyssal first, but Abyssal is another problem, and they're reworking it next patch, and hopefully maybe items will some of these items will become better with the introduction of Abyssal as a rush item rather than Iceborne Gauntlet being kind of only playable into an AD top laner, because you can't really go Sunfires first because that's also an armor heavy item. So yeah, there's a bit of a problem there. Spirit Trojan is a really good item. It's really, really good. As a third, fourth item on a lot of AD bruiser top laners. It's definitely worth going. So we'll have to see how that one performs. It wouldn't surprise me if it gets nerfed at some point, but for the moment it kind of flies under the radar. Fiora is a really good user of it. Renekton's a really good user of it. Renekton has his own issues, but you can use the item. The next one, the Ravenous incident. Yeah, this item was broken on release. This might have been one of the strongest items to have ever been released in its state in League. It just did too many things. It had incredible wave clear. It had way too much damage. It wasn't too expensive at the time. Of course, it's gone up in price by 300, I'm pretty sure now. So we can see how that one went. Actually, it might not have been. It might have been 3,300 actually. So it's only gone up in by 100. But even then, this item's still really strong at the moment. It might get nerfed again. It's 85 AD, 10% Omnivamp, ability haste, wave clear, which is really good. Definitely a strong item. Still a rush on Fiora, Aatrox, stuff like this. Really good abusers of the item. Yeah, we'll have to see how this one goes. And then my overall thoughts. So, raw power, top is too weak, jungle is too strong at the moment, but it's definitely more balanced than it used to be, where bot lane support were kind of the two strongest roles in the game. And if your bot lane like a bot lane snowballed, it would just take over the game, which can happen, and I think it's still good that it does happen, but not to the same scale as it happened last season, where it was just a case of 2-3 kills and enemy ADC would just take over. Items missed the mark. We need more, like a lot more items. I'm surprised they're still just like drip feeding us items when we should be getting 2-3 a month quite comfortably. And because there's not enough, they need to be less niche. But that's not really happening at the moment, so we'll see. Pings better, definitely. I'm still an advocate for voice chat. I get people's concerns with voice chat, obviously, because League is a very toxic game, but I'm someone who's liked the idea of voice chat. I also think that because it would be an opt-in, but you can choose to mute it, and of course people will still, there will be reasons behind this, but I think if they did it as an opt-in thing, then it would definitely be healthy for the game. But you could also make the argument of enemy team has voice chatters, and that debalances the game. So yeah, Mundo missed the mark. Casting seems fine, and Zeri will have to see in pro whether the champ ends up getting gutted again. And the jungle changes were the best thing to come out of preseason. I believe that's most of the things which affected Summoner's Rift. Overall, I don't think this was a great preseason. It felt it dragged out like a very long time. I obviously got COVID during this time, and I haven't made as much content. But when I look at it, there's not a lot of content to make. The rest of it would just be guides and talking about it's like the weaknesses of top lane. So past that, there's not a lot to do. I think preseason should have had more content, but more game modes, I guess. Obviously, we won't get more game modes. We're just going to get another 180 odd skins next year, aren't we? So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I should make more content soon when I no longer got COVID, but yeah. Thank you. Bye.